This radio program is PG-13. Parents strongly caution some material may be inappropriate for children under the age of 13.
The following program is sponsored by Michael W. Smith. The views expressed on the following program are those of the host and not necessarily those of staff, management, or ownership.
Arizona, Phoenix. Hey, Brother Mike back on the radio. Welcome to HardcoreChristianity.com. Thanks for tuning into the program. Today's Bible study, Schizophrenia. It's spreading all over the country. You wouldn't believe it. But there's been some interesting research done on it, and I wanted to share it with you today. You definitely want to stick around for this program and call somebody and tell them the program is on. This is Brother Mike. I am the professional counselor at the Arizona Deliverance Center. Been a counselor for over 40 years. We're located downtown on 15th Avenue, just south of Osborne Road. It's the red brick building. We have all kinds of services for the people who have mental illnesses and who want to be healed. Notice I said want to be healed. Yes, if you have a mental illness and you do not want to be healed, there's nothing we can do for you. We're not going to be able to help you. But if you decide that you want to be healed, you're ready to be free of it, I hope you'll contact us, 602-636-5800. We have 2 live services every week, 7 o'clock. Please come for a visit. Thursdays and Fridays at 7. Ladies' night is Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m. We have 3 Zoom services every week, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. I have a podcast every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. I hope you'll join me. Call for a counseling appointment today. There's free and no charge to born-again Christians. 602-636-5800. Schizophrenia is spreading all over the country, and it's becoming extremely dangerous. There's a violent component to it now that didn't normally exist decades ago. People are shooting at schools, mass murder at schools. In Colorado, some guy walked into a movie theater with a AK-47 and started shooting everybody up. All these patients had severe forms of schizophrenia with a violent component to it. There have been several school shootings of patients who had schizophrenia and or schizophrenic symptoms. It's a disease that's spreading all over the country. It is usually triggered in its infancy by abuse during childhood, where a kid starts to disconnect from reality in order to escape his miserable personal life or her. And the demons take advantage of that when they're young. And 2 demons usually cause schizophrenia: rejection and rebellion. You'll see those 2 demons, the most prevalent spirits inside the brain of a full-blown patient with schizophrenia. Now, for decades, neuroscientists have theorized that the voices heard in the person's mind stem from the brain mistaking its own internal dialogue for external sounds. Okay? This is really interesting because there's a groundbreaking study that just came out from the University of New South Wales. And now they have provided some evidence to support that theory. The theory being that the brain mistakenly its own inner dialogue for external sounds. In other words, the thoughts come into the brain and they're so powerful, the brain sees it as an external noise, an external voice. And in this study, they used, obviously, EEGs to monitor their brain's electrical activity. And then the researchers examined how individuals process their internal speech. For example, when we speak aloud or silently, the brain anticipates the sound of our voice and temporarily suppresses activity in the auditory cortex. That's the area responsible for processing external sounds. To differentiate self-generated thoughts from external stimulus. That's what the brain normally does. However, in people experiencing auditory hallucinations, this predictive mechanism malfunctions in the brain. And this study involving 142 patients was called the collateral discharge and dysfunction to inner speech and its relationship to auditory and verbal hallucinations in patients with schizophrenia spectrum disorders. That's the name of the study, believe it or not. It's in Schizophrenia Bulletin 21. It came out in October of last year, 2025. Really interesting. Now we're starting to see and we're getting an idea of what is actually causing schizophrenia, because I know what these researchers do not know, and I have the knowledge that they do not have. I have insights into schizophrenia that these scientists do not have. I know more than them. I understand more than them because God revealed it to me. These patients are suffering from spirits, but now this study, which is really interesting, is giving us a glimpse into how the demons are causing the brain to malfunction. It's really interesting. When they were testing these people, they would give them verbal cues. They were instructed mentally to say, words like ba or bih or something like that. They put headphones on the patients. And those that heard voices, a striking pattern emerged. Their brains showed heightened activity in the auditory cortex when their imagined speech matched the external sound, rather than suppressing it as expected. This suggests that the brain was processing internal thoughts as if they were external voices. This sensory misclassification sheds light on why hallucinated voices feel vividly real. To us, schizophrenia seems crazy, but to these patients, the spirits are able to make this thing sound exactly real. They make it sound exactly real. For example, one of the first cases of schizophrenia I ever worked with was in 2005. And I met the patient at a Burger King over in North Phoenix. And while we were sitting there talking, I was doing my clinical interview of him. He kept saying to me, "Can you hear those people in the back in the kitchen?" I said, "No, I don't hear anybody. I hear some noise back there, but I don't." He says, "Well, they're talking about me back there. They're talking about me." I said, No, they're not talking about you. No, that's a spirit in your brain feeding you lies. Because this patient I was interviewing had paranoid schizophrenia. And now we're kind of getting an idea of how the demons are pulling this off in the person's mind. These findings from the study deepen our understanding of schizophrenia, but also pave the way for early detection of psychosis. And this will potentially enable more timely and effective treatments. But there is no cure for schizophrenia because the people treating it do not see it as a spiritual condition. Okay? Schizophrenia is caused by two demons: the demon of rejection from childhood and the demon of rebellion. And this demon of rebellion is so powerful sometimes, he has a violent component to him. And he'll tell the person to go get a gun and shoot up a school or shoot up a movie theater or climb a tower and shoot people off that. This is how these demons work. Statistically speaking, there's less than 2% of Americans who have been formally diagnosed with schizophrenia. Okay, it's a very technically it's a very small disorder, but what a lot of people don't understand is that these spirits, these demons are sweeping the country, and people are developing very mild forms of schizophrenia. You know, they don't hear voices regularly. They occasionally hear one. Many born-again Christians who are prophetics start to develop kind of similar symptoms to schizophrenia. They start hearing God talking to them in their head. That's one of the big red flags of schizophrenia, or the beginnings of it, is when born-again Christians think they're a prophet and they think they hear God talking to them. The vast majority of those cases, 99% of them, are demonic. There's almost no prophets in the United States, virtually none. There's no apostles in the United States that I know of, not one. And there are all kinds of people in the prophetic movement who think they're prophets. And they hear God talking to them. And it turns into a disaster. Schizophrenia is usually, you know, a situation that hits between 18 and 30 years of age. Men have higher rates of ER visits for schizophrenia than women do. And minority groups seem to have a little higher schizophrenia situations than other groups. Blacks, browns, Native American Indians, multiracial adults. For some reason, why? It has to do with your upbringing. These demons, rejection and rebellion, enter the person's body, usually in childhood, usually during trauma periods. And these spirits keep getting stronger and stronger, particularly if it's long-term emotional or sexual abuse of a child. The longer term it is and the more intense it is, the greater incidences of the child starting to hear voices. We've had schizophrenics and schizoaffectives completely healed at the house at the Arizona Deliverance Center. Call 602-636-5800. Send me an email, mike@hardcorechristianity.com. If you know someone who's suffering from schizophrenia or has not been diagnosed with it and is hearing voices, there is hope for them. See you next time.
The views expressed on this program are those of the host and not necessarily those of staff, management, or ownership. This program was sponsored by Michael W. Smith.